I want to talk to you today about your grocery bill, not about geopolitics, not about nuclear negotiations, not about ceasefire frameworks or one page memoranda about the specific items on your grocery list that are going to cost more and in some cases become unavailable because 33 kilometers of water in the Persian Gulf have been closed to 90% of global commercial shipping since March 4th. This is what America is hiding. Not military losses, not diplomatic failures. The food bill, because the food bill is the consequence of this conflict that affects every American family, regardless of their political views, regardless of their position on Iran's nuclear program, regardless of whether they support or oppose the war. The food bill is the cost that falls on people who had no vote on whether the Strait of Hormuz was closed. Let me tell you what is actually happening to your food supply and why the Beijing summit that just concluded without a deal means it is going to get worse before it gets better. The fertilizer problem, what nobody is telling you, the most important fact about the Hormuz closure and your food bill is not the gasoline price, it is the fertilizer price. And it is the fact that the connection between Hormuz and fertilizer has been almost entirely absent from American mainstream coverage of this conflict. Iran is one of the world's largest producers of urea, the nitrogen based fertilizer that is the primary input for growing wheat, corn, rice, and soybeans. Iran produces approximately 7% of global urea supply. Russia, which has been collecting approximately $700 million per day in additional oil revenue generated by the elevated prices from the Hormuz closure, produces approximately 14% of global nitrogen fertilizer. Together, Iran and Russia account for more than 20% of the world's nitrogen fertilizer supply. Fertilizer prices have risen approximately 40% since February 28th. That is not a coincidence. It is the direct consequence of the Hormuz closure, disrupting Iran's ability to export urea through the strait, combined with the broader commodity price shock that has made Russian fertilizer more expensive and more difficult to obtain through Western financial systems. Fertilizer is not purchased and applied in the same week. It is purchased months before planting season and applied to fields that will not produce a harvest for 3 to 6 months after application. The fertilizer price increases of March and April 2026 will produce food price increases in the harvest months of September through December 2026. The food bill impact of the Hormuz closure has not yet fully arrived. It is arriving, and the timeline is already locked in by the agricultural calendar that cannot be changed regardless of what any summit produces. What 45 million people at risk means. The World Food Program has confirmed that 45 million people are at risk of food insecurity as a result of this conflict. I want to explain what that number means specifically because food insecurity is a term that can be abstracted away from its human reality. Food insecurity means families that were spending 60 to 70% of their income on food before this conflict began are now spending 80 to 90%. It means children whose caloric intake was already at subsistence level are now below it. It means the specific countries that depend on grain imported through Hormuz, Egypt, which imports approximately 60% of its wheat through the Strait, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Indonesia are facing the kind of price increases that historically produce social instability. Egypt's grain import costs have increased by approximately 35% since the Hormuz closure. The Egyptian pound has lost an additional 12% of its value since February 28th as the country's foreign currency reserves were depleted, paying elevated prices for food imports routed around the closed strait. The Egyptian government, which already spends approximately 2% of GDP on bread subsidies to prevent social unrest, is under fiscal pressure that its economy cannot absorb indefinitely. This is what 45 million people at risk of food insecurity looks like at the country level. It is not an abstraction. It is specific governments making impossible budget choices between food subsidies and debt service, specific families making impossible daily choices between food and medicine, specific children receiving fewer calories today than they received on February 27th. What is happening to your grocery bill right now? Let me bring this home to the American families I know are watching this. Wheat prices are up approximately 28% since February 28th. Wheat is the input for bread, pasta, flour, cereal, crackers, cookies, pizza dough, and every baked product sold in every American grocery store. The 28% wheat price increase has not yet fully translated into retail food prices. There is typically a 3 to 6 month lag between commodity price increases and retail shelf prices as food manufacturers and distributors absorb the cost before passing it through. That lag is ending. The wheat prices of March 2026 will be the bread and pasta prices of June and July 2026. Gasoline costs 52% more than it did on February 27th. Every item on your grocery shelf arrived by truck. Every truck in America burns diesel to move its cargo from farm to distribution center to store. Diesel at current prices adds approximately $0.08 to $0.12 per item to the delivery cost of every product in every American store. That cost is already beginning to appear in food prices at the shelf. It will continue to appear as long as the Hormuz closure continues to keep oil prices elevated. Vegetable oil, soybean oil, palm oil, sunflower oil are up 22% since February 28th. Palm oil and soybean oil transit Hormuz from Asian producers to global markets. Sunflower oil prices were already elevated from the Ukraine conflict's disruption of Ukrainian sunflower production. The Hormuz closure added a maritime disruption to the supply chain of the substitute oils that were supposed to replace Ukrainian sunflower. The combined disruption is now visible in cooking oil prices in every American grocery store. S&P Global warned this week that even after the Hormuz closure ends, it will take a minimum of 7 months to fully restore upstream production. That means the commodity price increases you are seeing today at your grocery store will persist into late 2026 and potentially into 2027, regardless of what any deal signed tomorrow says about Hormuz reopening timelines. What America is hiding the specific information gap. Now, I want to address what America is hiding because the title of this analysis makes a specific claim, and I want to be precise about what it means. America is not hiding the existence of food price increases. Those are visible on every grocery receipt. What America is hiding, or more precisely, what the official American narrative of this conflict has systematically obscured, is the causal chain between the Hormuz closure and specific food price increases that American families are experiencing. The official narrative presents the Hormuz closure as an economic inconvenience, primarily affecting gasoline prices and energy costs. It does not present the closure as a food security emergency affecting 45 million people globally, and every American grocery bill specifically. It does not explain the fertilizer connection, that the same closure that raised gasoline prices is simultaneously raising the price of the nitrogen that grows the wheat that makes the bread on your table. It does not explain that the food price increases of late 2026 are already locked in by the agricultural calendar, regardless of any deal signed this week or next month. Why is this connection hidden? Because explaining it accurately would require acknowledging that the Hormuz closure has consequences that extend well beyond the diplomatic and military dimensions that the White House discusses. It would require acknowledging that the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury on February 28th during negotiations, as Iran's foreign ministry documented, set in motion an agricultural price cascade that will affect American family budgets through 2026 and into 2027. The food bill is the most politically dangerous consequence of this conflict for the administration. gasoline prices are visible and immediate. Food prices are visible, immediate, and affect every family every week, regardless of whether they own a car. The average American family spends approximately $1,200 per month on food. A 15% food price increase, which is where current commodity price trends project retail prices by September 2026, adds $180 per month to that bill. $2,160 per year per family. That number, combined with the $750 per family per year in additional gasoline costs already confirmed, puts the total annual household cost of this conflict at approximately $2,900 per American family. Not to military operations, not to government accounts, directly out of the budgets of the families paying for groceries and filling their gas tanks. The Beijing summit, what its failure means for your food bill. The Beijing summit concluded this week. Trump met Xi Jinping on May 14th and 15th. Hormuz is still closed. No deal has been announced. No timeline for Hormuz reopening has been confirmed. I want to explain what the summit's failure to produce a deal means for the food bill timeline I have just described. Every additional week that Hormuz remains closed adds approximately $2 billion to global food commodity costs through the compound effects of fertilizer disruption, shipping, rerouting costs, and supply chain delays. The agricultural calendar that locked in the fall 2026 food price increases was set by the planting decisions made in March and April, the months when farmers decided how much to plant based on the fertilizer they could afford at the prices then prevailing. The summit's failure means that the September through December 2026 food price increases I described are now confirmed. The commodity markets that determine those prices have already priced in a Hormuz closure that extends through the summer. The only development that would change that trajectory is a deal signed and implemented before June, the point at which the second planting season decisions are made and the fall harvest calendar becomes definitively locked. A deal before June saves the 2026 fall harvest cycle from the second round of fertilizer price disruption. No deal before June means the fall 2026 food price increases are followed by further increases in the 2027 spring harvest season. S&P Global's warning that the crisis could extend into 2027 is not a tail risk. It is the baseline scenario if no deal is reached before the second planting season deadline. What you need to watch. Three things will tell you whether the food bill impact is about to get worse or about to improve. Watch fertilizer futures prices, not oil prices, not gasoline prices. Urea and ammonium nitrate futures traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. If fertilizer futures drop significantly in the next 2 weeks, a deal on Hormuz is being priced in before any official announcement. If they stay elevated or rise further, the agricultural market has concluded that no deal is coming before the second planting season deadline. Watch Egyptian government bond yields. Egypt is the most exposed large economy to the food price impact of the Hormuz closure. If Egyptian yields spike, the food security emergency is intensifying at the country level in ways that will eventually produce the kind of regional instability that forces a diplomatic resolution that the Beijing summit did not produce. Watch American supermarket earnings calls. Kroger, Walmart, Costco, the major American food retailers report quarterly earnings and provide forward guidance on food price trends. Their guidance for the second half of 2026 will tell you more honestly than any government statement what the food bill impact of the continued Hormuz closure will look like by September. The Hormuz closure is about to hit your food bill. It has already started. The full impact is arriving through 2026 and into 2027. And the Beijing summit that was supposed to end this conflict ended without the deal that would have stopped the cascade. Watch the fertilizer futures. Watch Egypt. Watch the supermarket earnings calls. Those three things will tell you what no official statement will